Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to the 7th session of our web series. We call it the Think Tank. What is Think Tank? Think Tank is a crucible of some of the proliferating brains of who come together and share thoughts, ideas, insights with leading industry stalwarts. My name is Dhananjay Nithani. I'm one of the partners based out of Mumbai at Sapphire Human Solutions. I am joined by my fellow colleague and partner from Gurgaon, Mr. Sandeep Batra, and some of the senior folks in the business development team. We have Zishan, Sandeep Malhotra, Meghna, Aniket, who are joining us today on the call from Sapphire Human Solutions. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Ankit Bansal also on the call, who is the founder CEO of the company. You've identified Ankit on the screen. Brilliant. He's the guy and he's the man who founded the company 12 years ago in 2008. I think it was a very humble beginning then, and since the last 12 years, we've done more than 950 CXO facilitations across 180 clients. And these clients belong to varied industries. So we've had our exposure to BFSI, we've had our exposure to pharma, healthcare, to manufacturing, to industrials, and to infrastructure and real estate. So we were just, we at Sapphire, we were just coming across certain research reports. And this research report has a relatedness to the topic of discussion today, which is very, very important from an woman leader perspective. One of the Credit Suisse reports recently showcased certain numbers across countries of representation of women leaders at the top. The numbers are surprising. The numbers are a little shocking to be very honest with you. In India, we have 2% women CEOs. And 9% representation of senior women leaders at the top today. As compared to other countries, when we go to Italy, Singapore, they have 15% women CEOs. You come down to Australia and New Zealand, they still have 7-8%. And China, US, and UK are not too far behind from 5 to 7%. So why is it 2% for India is a very surprising statistic, because the talent that we have in our country is the best talent in the world, especially when it comes to senior women leaders, right? So, and that's the topic of our discussion today. You know, what's this journey all about for a woman leader, from being a senior functional woman leader right up to the corner office? I think we need more representation at the top. 2% is something which is just not justifiable for a country like us, which has huge talent across genders, and especially so when it comes to senior women leaders. And to discuss that and to advise us and to guide us, we have someone today with us on the call who is the champion of diversity and gender diversity herself. She's been a role model for several women leaders in the country today. She's someone who has traveled that distance, who has crossed over the bridge. We have Neelam Dhawan with us on the call today. Welcome, Neelam. A very warm welcome and very good evening.
Thank you, Dhananjay and Ankit. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm happy to be talking to such leaders across the country. It's indeed my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you once again. We're glad to have you here with us. Neelam needs no introduction in the group, outside the group, wherever we are. But let me try and attempt making an introduction for Neelam. Neelam has been a supervisory board member in Royal Philips, Netherlands, a non-executive director in Icicibank, Yatra Online, and also on the governing board of IIIT Delhi. She has been heading the IBM advisory board from December 2018 until August this year, and also on the executive council of NASSCOM from 2009 to 17. Neelam's journey and her contributions to the information technology sector has been leading the technology and the complex technology businesses in highly matrixized organizations. She's literally led those IT transformations across several industries in our country today. You talk of manufacturing, you talk of healthcare, you talk of government, you talk of banking and finance, and you name it, and she's done it all. Warm welcome once again, Neelam. Thank you so much. We also have a galaxy of stars today with us today. They are the esteemed women leaders and delegates for the event. course, a warm welcome once again to all the lovely women and the senior women leaders. We're proud to have you here with us and this opportunity to interact with Neelam. And Neelam, if I can just start the moderation session with the first question that I have with me.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. So we are talking about the journey of a senior women leader to the corner office, Neelam. How has this journey been for you? It's a long journey. It's an eventful journey, especially being from the information technology industry. Was it easy? Was it difficult to conquer everything and then reach where you have reached today?
So Dhananjay, this question comes up quite often as to how was the journey to becoming a CEO and what did you do differently? I truly think I didn't do anything differently except do a job. You know, whatever role I was given, whatever job I had, look at it as this is an important role for me and I would give it all 100%. So it didn't matter to me what was the job. It was like I could be in sales, I could be in marketing, I would be in product management. And wherever I was put, I was happy to do that role. But I always had this, that I have to do the best I can do in that particular role. So that was very critical for me to do well. In hindsight, it was like two things that helped my career. One, I would put up my hand for a role even before somebody could think about it. In the sense, if I knew that I wanted to be in product management, I would go across and talk to the general manager and say, I'm very excited about the work you do and I'll be happy to do this. And this is what I do right now. Just in case there's an opening in your group, you know, I would be happy to look at it. And please consider me in whenever you are hiring somebody in your team. I didn't realize that I was being pushy or anything, but now I realize that I used to put up my hand for roles as well as go and look for roles which I wanted to do. And those times when I was doing that, I didn't think anything was wrong with it, you know, to go and introduce myself and start saying what I'd like to do and what I feel excited about. The second thing which I realized is I would get bored very easily in my assignments. So every 2 years, 3 years, I would think I've done everything I can on this assignment. So I need to now look at something. So if I was offered a different role, I would jump at it. In hindsight, that gave me multiple roles I could do and exposure to various teams, various product groups, various companies. And perhaps that led me to general management much faster than just doing the same role for 20 years or 10 years. And I think I was extremely always excited about a new role, and that I put in a lot of more passion into new things, and I think my managers realized it. Lastly, whenever I think about what influenced my looking at various roles, is also to say, can I make a difference to that role? In my heart, if I felt, if I get this role and I do well, I know I can make a difference to it, right? And that's what I felt was a driving for me, that I can make a difference to this role I am in, which was very important. And that led to a journey which today, when I look back in hindsight, is long, but when I was living through it, it just seemed like moving at a very, very fast pace. You know, 2005, when I was all of 45 years old, I had this whole dream. Once I'm 45 and I'm not a CEO of a business, then I've missed the boat. And so when when Microsoft offered me to be their country leader, I didn't think twice about it. And I just said, well, that's the role I want to take. And I did ask the manager who was hiring me as to what made you think about hiring me? And this was within a month of my joining Microsoft. And he says, two things. He says, one, externally, people spoke very well about you. He said, I spoke to some of the business leaders across various industries who are customers, and they had very good feedback on you. And two, he said, when I look at your career, you've always been associated with growth, growth of business, growth of teams, growth of whatever you have been doing. So, and that's in hindsight, I think, were the two factors which led people to think I could do the roles they were offering me.
So
Back to you, Dhananjay.
Yeah. Yes. So I think this this passion and the restlessness to go to the top within a defined time frame is eventually the secret sauce for success.
Could be. It's your personal goals. I think what we want to achieve, we set personal goals, and then we step it up. I don't know. I've always been like that. I have a goal. I focus on it, and then keep working towards it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And just keen to know one more thing. In the midst of a whirlwind and so many things around the goals that we are chasing, be it professional, personal, I think, and in any sphere of life, it is not only about corporate India that we are talking about. You be a cricketer, or you be any sportsman, or an entertainment guy, or a person from the corporate India. I think the family plays a very critical role as the support system and the backbone to help you achieve the success, especially when we are talking in this case as a journey to the corner office, which is a huge thing. Would be keen to know how is your family adapted to everything and played that critical role in your journey to success.
So just keep in mind that I grew up in the 60s and I started working in the 80s, right? And they were a little different era than what we are living in today. So when I was growing up, my dad and my family did come from Pakistan. My dad's family and my mother's family came after partition. But my dad was of a very clear opinion that my daughter should have as much education as my son. So he was all about equal education. And he used to tell me, he says, I don't care what subjects you choose, as long as you do what your brother has done. He did post-graduation, you do post-graduation. He does a PhD, you better do a PhD. So he was always for equal education. And my mom used to say that women should be financially independent because no matter what the crisis, you can handle it if you're financially independent. So that thought process really motivated while I was growing up and going through school and college and trying to get into my work life. But I agree with you that as you go into your career, your family plays a very critical role, because my husband was very supportive of my working. His words were very clear. He says, I work very long hours. And if you're going to sit at home and then when I come home and you expect that we are going to go out or something which is more meaningful than you're sitting at home, it is going to be a big drag, because I would be really dog tired when I come home. So you better follow your passion, follow your jobs. And I think my mother-in-law, father-in-law also supported me, because my mom-in-law started working in 1958. So when she started working at that time, for her, it was granted that I will go out and work. But it's not about just supporting. So there were a whole lot of things that the extended family and my husband has responsibility. But I think it is also about setting up the ecosystem around us to support us. I think that's a very important thing we keep forgetting. Like, I have two girls, right? They went through school, they went through college, one is working, one is back at university in UK. But the fact remains that when you have kids and you have a job and you have a family, two things happen. You first set up your ecosystem correctly to support you. And two, it is about priorities. As priorities, you need to prioritize. Is it my job? Is it my family? And I felt very early in life, I can't focus on being the best daughter-in-law, the best daughter, the best housekeeper, having the most beautiful house. I couldn't do all that. I could manage my job and my kids, and the rest I have to get help to do. And the moment I thought through it like that, suddenly I had a bunch of time to do many more things, right? I decided I'm not going to cook. I'm not going to look after the house. I'm not going to be the biggest social entertainer, which I never was. And those two priorities, then I gave 100%. And I think the family played a very critical role in supporting me, saying, yeah, you do that.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. I think you're blessed to have such a beautiful family, and it's good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Story, really brilliant. Neelam, just going back to the days which is pre Microsoft, you were a business leader then, and I'm probably going back to the Compaq days. And this transition from being a business leader to a CEO, what are the things that changed for you? Because it's a massive transition if you have to look at it from a face value perspective. Of course, you have functional leaders reporting into you. Those are very visible, tangible changes that you see. But beyond that, I'm sure there are a lot of things that will have changed for you individually and also from an organization point of view.
Very important question you've asked. When you head the business, when you're heading a business, you're responsible for the P&L of that division, right? You're responsible for ensuring that you meet the revenue targets, the profitability targets of that division. And you are the only person who can make results happen for that group of businesses which you run. When you become the CEO, you have people who own the P&Ls, and you own the country P&L, and you own the country responsibility of revenue, gross margin, costs and costs which you are incurring, and hence the EBITDA which the business is generating. And that's a big challenge in India because India has never been a profitable business in most of the IT companies. And I'm sure it is true for many of the multinationals that India is never the profitable business. And hence the extreme pressure is on the CEO to ensure that India business is profitable. It's a big role change because not only you're running now all cumulative P&L, so that's your revenue responsibility, you suddenly are taking decisions which nobody wants to take. Sure. And sometimes you're taking decisions for a division you've never worked in, right? So if you take HP, where I was the CEO for 9 years, we grew the talent. When I joined, we were around 48,000 people. And by the time I left, we were 76,000 people in India. Right? And when you look at the size, you don't get to know everyone, but a large chunk of your role becomes, how do I manage this talent? Do I have the right talent? What skills? So I would say we start playing the role of an HR leader, so to speak, in quite a bulk of our time. Decisions on which business you'll close down and which business you will not close down is something you take as a CEO. And that's a critical decision because it requires you to repurpose talent, remove talent, as well as, take decisions on which nobody else wants to take. 3, you are the face of the company externally. So you are meeting government, you're meeting the CEOs, you're meeting all the decision makers who are important. And lastly, you lead business from the front. You don't lead business from the back. You can't be sitting in the office and then saying, everyone, you need to go out and get business, but you do need to lead from the front. So your role changes completely. One of the things which I must talk about when you look at external image of a company, it gets linked to the CEO to a great extent and his or her thinking, because you are going to link it to your communication, to the press, to the TV, to media, to now on social media, as well as how you have the engagements externally done. So it suddenly changes completely, and running a business or P&L is one of your responsibilities.
Sure. Thank you, Neelam. Neelam, you mentioned about HR leaders, and this is a very important question that I want to ask in this forum before I hand it over to the session and I throw it open to the group. On HR leaders, I think they have been driving a very, very important agenda in organizations today. which is probably the game changer for most of the businesses. We're talking about custodians and drivers of people's strategy today, who are the HR leaders. Your take on them as becoming the CEOs of tomorrow? Would love to hear your thoughts, and so will my fellow participants on the call.
So it depends on what business you are in, Dhananjay. If you look at, for example, you look at Accenture, Rekha Menon was their HR leader for many, many, many years. So Rekha led HR for Accenture for many, many years before she became the CEO. And I see that in many companies where talent is really critical. And you see many of the back offices we are running, many of the call centers we are running, you have the HR leaders as the CEO. So you find that there are roles and companies in which you can take a HR leader to be the CEO, and there's no problem in their success, because the most important thing they are managing are people. However, whether it's HR or finance, because I saw some people from finance on the call too, they can do the role, right? Because the person from finance will be looking at the P&L and would be working on the financial aspects, and the other aspects are there which he or she can pick up. It's important that you're willing to take the risk and take the decisions and go with all the negatives and positives which come with the decisions you take. I think that's very critical. So if in your mind you can take decisions, I would say in ambiguity, if you can take decisions, or you can lead at the time when their situation is not clear, you could be from any function, you can be a CEO. And take the risk. There are risks you take in the business on some decisions and on people. I think that's important for you to take. And, you know, once when I was still growing up, somebody said this to me. He said, you know, of the 10, you must take all the decisions you are supposed to take. We can live with 7 out of the 10 decisions you take being right, but we cannot live with you're not taking decisions, right? And that's what it is about being a CEO. Sometimes you know nothing about a topic and you sit through, you listen to people, you get your information, and then you take decisions. Now, and many people in various roles don't want to take those, be in that kind of risk-taking, decision-making role. They can't do it. Otherwise, I think anybody can be a CEO.
Yeah, brilliant. And the face of HR has changed so much today. I think they are playing a very strategic role in driving the objectives of organizations today. I think the whole transformation of the HR as a function has been very, very heartwarming and brilliant to see from those old days of HR when it was perceived very differently. And we completely agree with you. Yes, HR leaders on this call are the future CEOs of tomorrow. And probably, Neelam, I'm getting a little greedy because there's so many questions that we can ask. The chain of insights can just go on and on and on. So before everyone starts looking at me as to what is happening, I think I should throw open this session to the group, because they will have their own set of questions, thoughts and ideas and suggestions on this call to talk to you and be guided by you on that. So I'm just throwing open this session right now. Women leaders, on this call, we can do it in 2 ways. One is use the Zoom window to raise our hands and then get into the session to ask our questions, or we can do it our traditional way of raising our hands and then get into the call to ask questions to me. So over to the group.
Hi, this is Jaimalini here. Neelam, it's been great hearing your session. I have a question for you. So if I have to ask you, over the period of years that you have, been a CEO and a very successful women leader. So if I have to ask you one biggest accomplishment which makes you proud even till date, what would that be?
Very tough to say. Very, very difficult.
You have
to
many,
say,
but some instances do stay in our mind, right? I mean, and you can never forget that experience. So I know you have many accomplishments.
I'll share with you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's tough to choose, but one which comes to my mind most readily, Jaya, is the one experience which I had when I was taking up the Asia Pacific and Japan leadership role. My manager at that time, who was then moving to US, and I was going to take his role, and he said to me, he says, the most difficult country is going to be Japan and Korea, because they don't expect women leaders. They just don't want to accept that women can be leaders, and especially an Indian woman coming to be giving them guidance and being their leader.
Absolutely.
And I took it to heart, and I said, listen, they have to see, why am I the one who was their peer, now their boss, right? And I took it to heart to say, a woman from India doing this role, how do I get myself accepted by it? It was a tough challenge. But I'll share with you, I did not find it a problem in Korea and Japan, but I found Australia was very resistant. They just, I mean, the resistance was, here is a woman who's never lived in Australia, is now trying to tell us how to do business over here. And I was not trying to tell them how to do business. I was just trying to tell them, follow the process, follow the rules, and I want results from you. And they just couldn't get used to that fact. And finally, it took me time, but then it turned around, and we got along all well to execute. But that's a different story, because building a team, as all of you know, is a Herculean task. But building a team which sits in different countries, culturally different, and then they align with you, I think that stands out in my mind as something I achieved, and I really feel good about it. But when I was living through it, it was hell.
Yeah, that would have kept you awake in the night. That was going to be my next question. What kept you awake in the night? So thank you so much for sharing those experiences. Yeah, great hearing from you. Thank you.
Neelam, this is going to be a tough question to answer forever in terms of picking up one accomplishment over others.
Yeah, Ekta, you wanted to go next.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you, Neelam. It is amazing to hear you. Sorry, my voice is a little bit gone, but I hope I still am making sense. What I wanted to ask you is, one advice or multiple too, that you would give us, all the women that are listening to you today, especially me, for career advancement, because we are a very aspirational set of women over here.
Yeah, and Ekta, this is a great question. For me, I think, especially in businesses which are male dominated, and sorry to say, IT industry is men dominated. They classify women and say, oh, she cannot do this role, or she may go on maternity leave, or she'll have some social obligations to fulfill, and then she will not be available. So they have preconceived ideas on what we can do. So our explaining to them what we want to do is extremely important. And hence I say, put up your hand and say, I think I can do this role. I'm excited about what you do, what I want to do, right? And I saw it at appraisal time as leaders. When a man walks in, and this is no disrespect to anyone on the call or any of the male colleagues I work with, and it's an appraisal time. Let's say there's a man who's got 70% results, and there's a woman who's got 70% results in a year. The man will walk in, and I'm doing the appraisal. First question is, how do you feel about the year that's gone by? He will always say, it was a great year. I achieved this, I met so-and-so, oh, fantastic presentation. And then you look at this thing and you say, but guess what? You've achieved only 70% results. Oh, I would have achieved great results, but something went wrong. However, I deserve a promotion and an increment. They never stop asking. Now you ask the same question to a woman, and the first thing she'll say, I achieved only 70% this year. And she gets into then saying, maybe she'll say the same things, but she acknowledges that I have, not achieved my results. And I used to always tell all my women, first look at what are the good things you have done, highlight those, and then talk about outcomes. Perhaps you will be more balanced in your approach. And the last thing you should always remember, nobody hires you to say, I'm going to fix this weakness in her. Everybody hires you for your strengths. So please play to your strengths. Don't underplay your strengths.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Neelam, thank you so much. Very insightful what you're sharing with us. You know, something that I've experienced, I don't know if other women on this call have experienced or you have. You know, I tend to be mostly smiling. You know, it comes across that I'm easygoing, and there hasn't been a role or a job where people have thought that, you know, just because I'm smiling, I'm a softie, and then I have to show them, like, you know, that I'm a lady by choice. I am capable of, you know, being more serious and ambitious. So I mean, something that I'm kind of managing to deal with that. But any thoughts on how, you know, have you ever faced this, and, you know, how to deal with this?
You know, no, so we are. I mean, I am the happiest when I'm in a job which I know I can do well, I can make a difference to it, and I know I'm executing well. So I'm happy about the outcomes I'm getting, right? So it's going to show you, right? But I think, and especially if you're in all male meeting room and you are smiling because you know you have more strengths than them, they'll say, oh, look at her, the way she is, she couldn't be very serious, right? So I found my communication became like ticking like this. I would come in, and if I were to say, talk about something, I'll think, I feel great about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 achievements, right? Or 2 things which we have done, or 1 thing I think we have achieved. So, and I would focus it on that, and then people would realize that there is achievement she's talking about, and that's why she's thrilled about it. But I know what you mean. They all expect it to be serious. Guess what? If it's an all male meeting, they'll talk about golf, they'll talk about their family, they'll talk about everything else, and then 15 minutes they'll get the work done, right? And I have seen, if there's not enough diversity in the room, if it's all women, we may talk about similar things too before we get to the work. But having the right diversity makes you get much more professional conversation in the room. And yes, we have to live with it and realize. So just focus on why you're smiling. I feel great because this is a great outcome we've had. And that just puts everything in perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
But there's no harm in smiling. At least it cheers up the gloomy blue environment.
I mean, what's there to be, you know, stressed about? I mean, you know, we're doing our jobs and we're doing our jobs well.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is. Why, you know, like, why not smile and, you know, be happy?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are leaving us with a lot of reflections and insights for tonight. There's a lot to think through. Thank you so much. We come to the close of the session today of Think Tank, the 7th edition. Neelam, we are deeply honored, and thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule. It's been wonderful, wonderful takeaways for the last 1 hour. I think after 1 hour, we're confident that the senior women leaders on this group are the future leaders and the CEOs of tomorrow. We thank the esteemed delegates, the great women leaders who worked their way through to becoming great leaders in their own respective domains and functions and organizations. Brilliant to have you with us. We know we are fighting a pandemic situation, and we are bouncing back hard to come back to normalcy. And we'll do that. There's been a lot of effort in our country, especially the way we have been bouncing back. So on that note, till we meet again, thank you and goodbye, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for calling me. I enjoyed myself too. Thank you very much, and all the best to everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.